I'm so excited to interview Jehan Ara, who is the president of Basha, the Nest Big Bird. Basically, she heads the Nest.io, which is one of the country's leading incubators, which has graduated over 100 startups. But she's also unofficially the queen of the startup ecosystem in Pakistan. I am but her lowly handmaid. So I wanted to use this as an opportunity to talk about all the cool stuff that they're up to. I just think that what you're up to is awesome, and we've been friends for a while. So, Jehan, first I want you to actually introduce yourself, but tell us a little bit about your story, because I think we so rarely get to hear about you. We get to hear about all the awesome things that you're up to, but I'd love to hear a little bit more about your journey to where you are today.
Okay, so the journey is not that inspiring. I've done all sorts of things. I've never planned for it. I've just done things that make me happy and that I'm passionate about and that I put my 150% into. So I've never stuck with a job or anything that didn't make me happy, that I really didn't want to do, because I think it's unfair to the person who employs you or to the project that you take on if you can't give it your 100%. So I started off life as a journalist, but for a very short time. But I still retain my passion for writing. Whether I'm happy or unhappy, I just must write it down. So a lot of that stuff nobody has read because, it could cause a lot of controversy, especially when I'm very angry or annoyed about it. I just put it down and it's my way of dealing with it, right? So I'm still a writer at heart, but I stopped being a professional writer after about a year of doing it right in the very beginning. Then I went into advertising, marketing, communications, and I did sell insurance for about a year with American Life. So yeah, so I've done a bit of everything, and I think each of those things taught me something about myself as well as my own abilities, about other people. And then when I moved back to Pakistan in the mid-90s,
and you moved back from Hong Kong, right?
Yeah, I grew up in Hong Kong, and I think I credit the people of Hong Kong with some of the qualities that I bring to my work. One of those qualities is that I am extremely hardworking. I'm a workaholic. I have a strong sense of discipline, especially in terms of time discipline. I hate it when I'm late, and I certainly am very annoyed when somebody else is late.
Yeah.
So I think that when you give somebody a time to be somewhere, then if you don't show up, then you're not showing respect for that person. So that's something that the people of Hong Kong and Hong Kong as a city has taught me, that time is very important. And I think that's something that
we need to learn in Pakistan.
Because I think we would be even more awesome if we could learn that.
Yeah, I think Karachi as a city tends to be better that way in terms of professionalism. But
still,
I agree. I agree with you.
People in Karachi or people in Pakistan get a lot of things done, and both of us know a lot of really great people who get a lot done, but they do it in their own time. And so, that syncing that we should have between various people doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Because everybody's working on their own time schedule.
Exactly.
So that I wish were different. When I moved back to Pakistan, I started a company with a friend of mine, and that was my entry into tech. We started a multimedia company. It was all, multimedia was all a buzzword in those days. So we were the pioneers in a lot of new products that we came out with. The 50 years of Pakistani art, the Fair CD, which was a multimedia production. We did the very first touchscreen kiosk application for i2i Pakistan. We also created the first product catalog, interactive product catalog for Jafarji's. So, a lot of pioneering things, and it was a very small team. So we learned to do a lot of things that we didn't know. It was self-taught, and we enjoyed it every minute of the way.
That's awesome. And then please continue. Yes.
That's when I joined Pasha, because I felt that if you were part of a sector, you should be part of the trade body that represents that sector. It was a little frustrating in the beginning because, trade associations tend to talk a lot, but don't get much done. And so I was frustrated, and I kept telling them that. And unfortunately at that time, and even now, the number of women who were members of PASHA were very few, because these were CEOs of IT companies. And unfortunately, there are not many CEOs of IT companies in Pakistan right now. In fact, internationally, that's also a trend. So there used to be this room full of men, and there was me who looked younger than I was, and looked as if, I didn't really belong. And I was telling them, look, we need to get something done. So after a few years, they decided that, look, this woman drives us insane. So why don't we bring her onto the board of PASHA and tell her, okay, if you think changes need to be made, make them. So that's what happened.
And so how many years ago was that?
That was about 14 years ago.
Exactly. So whenever we talk about the startup ecosystem and we talk about PASHA has been really the major pioneer in terms of a lot of the movement in really kind of moving the technology or the IT space in Pakistan in a direction, right? And I think it's been fascinating to see kind of what that trade association has done compared to other chambers of other industries. And I think that's amazing that 14 years ago, this is when you entered the space, right? So we talk about a lot of...
At that time, it wasn't really the startup space, and PASHA is much more than that.
Yeah.
There were a lot of companies doing a lot of innovative things. So yes, I think it was more the innovation space, and it was so exciting to see small companies, medium-sized companies doing amazing work that nobody knew about, not even locally, but also internationally. Mm-hmm. And so I made it my mission that I'm going to talk about these people. And I did. I even started an online show which had 60 episodes. It was called In the Lane of Why.
Yes. This is actually when I first met you. I remember seeing some of those episodes.
Yes. So I wanted to talk about these people, all these amazing people who were running IT companies and who had so many clients that nobody knew about, who had international clients that nobody knew about. There was lots of innovation. So I enjoyed all that. And then about 8-9 years ago is when we actually started telling people that, look, in order to grow the industry, we need to attract more people into the tech sector as entrepreneurs. Mm-hmm. And that's when we started the PASHA Launchpad program. And 14 years ago, we started the PASHA ICT Awards, which, recognized innovation. And then we had the Startup Insiders program. It wasn't one person, it was a group of people all across Pakistan who got involved and said, look, we must do this.
I think that's what's really important. Yeah, PASHA was, and I think it was because there was this group of people, right? And I think so often we try to paint a startup ecosystem as one pioneer or one person, when in reality, it's a group of people. It's so many different initiatives that need to play into it. When you look at the startup ecosystem yourself, right? Like you've been really part of it since the beginning. What do you think in terms of PASHA's role? What has been that evolution like? And what are things that you guys are excited about doing in the future?
So when we started, it was more about, okay, if there's a young person who has an idea, let's arrange for him or her to pitch to a group of experts, a group of entrepreneurs who can pick holes in those ideas and then pick one or two whom we can give a couple of 100,000 rupees to try and create a prototype or see if there's going to be something that works out, right? So we started that way. And it excited a lot of people. And some of the successful entrepreneurs you see today, Farhan Masood, who's based out of Chicago, was a winner of the PASHA Launchpad program in Lahore. So there have been people who have proven that just because somebody believed in them and somebody sort of gave them advice at the right time, things happen. Then we tried to formalize this when we started with the, when we started with the ICT Awards program. Recognizing innovation at university level was one of the things we did. Recognizing startups was another thing that we did. And some of the kids who won at university for the products that they came out with in their final year projects actually turned them into companies later on. So I think that recognition and that mentoring that they received at that level was very important. Mm-hmm. Now I think it's a buzzing startup ecosystem all across the country. Mm-hmm. There are lots of people. I mean, the Punjab government has been very active for the last 5 years, starting not only an incubator but also an accelerator. Then a lot of universities have incubation programs now. There's LUMS, which has started before we did. And now for the last 3 years almost, the Nest has been sort of trying to pump up the young people in Karachi. And it's been exciting. It's been exciting for them. It's been very exciting for us. And now the latest at the federal level, Ignite, which has started setting up the national incubator programs, the centers in different cities. I think it's all needed, and it's all adding to the interest. It's adding to the connection between people, young people, mentors. Mentors are getting into it, and some of them say that we're getting into it because we can't do it ourselves. Let's be a part of something that somebody else, somebody much younger, is doing. So I think it's great to see.
What are the challenges, though? So I want to also talk about the Nest and all the amazing things that you guys are up to. But when we talk about, all these positive trends that are happening in the space, but what are some of the things that continue to be challenges for the startup ecosystem?
So I think we still have many young people who don't enter the space because they don't know about it. They don't know what support they will get. Also, the fact that many of them are from middle-class families who need to get a job in order to make a living for themselves, make sure their houses are functioning. So a lot of that is keeping some of the brightest people from coming into entrepreneurship. Not enough money, not even enough faith being put into these young people at an early stage. I think it's not just, when they've made it, let's now invest in them. I think the money needs to be invested at different stages. One at the, really seed level, when they're trying to prove that their idea will work. Proof of concept at that stage, that's extremely important. And then once they've proven that concept, giving them money in order to go to market, come out with a real product. And then at a third stage, when they need to scale. If they can get the right amount of money at these three stages, they will be able to get together a team in order to, really deliver on that idea. And then they'll be able to go after Series A funding. Because nobody is going to give them Series A funding until they've shown that there's traction, that there is a product that will actually make money for the investor, right?
Definitely. I think one thing that's been really interesting about Pakistan is because of the risk associated with the country, our ecosystem has largely been for Pakistanis by Pakistanis, right? Which I think is actually really great from a patriotic sense, is that our ecosystem is something that's been built by Pakistanis. But I think what's been interesting recently is this trend, and we've been talking about this a lot, of people from the outside now looking at Pakistan, right? For a number of reasons. I think, economic growth, but also, we're now on the emerging markets index. Like, people are starting to pay attention to this country. What do you think about that trend right now? Do you think that's something, is it just curiosity? Do you see, how do we actually move that needle in terms of getting more outside people investing in Pakistan?
So I think what's happened is, what I've seen is that a lot of people, that young people that we believed in, some of them have moved to Silicon Valley or other parts of the world and have shown that the investment that they have received has really been used wisely, and that the products that they have created have actually made money for their investors. That's always a good thing. We need to be able to do more of that. That starts the curiosity going. And then that starts them saying, okay, where did you come from? Oh, you came from Pakistan and you've moved here, but is there more happening in that ecosystem? I think all of us talking about it, all of us writing about it, all of us making sure that these young people are linked up with somebody somewhere, so that they can see that there is talent, there is that passion, and that there is this mission in them to deliver, right? I think that's responsible for the curiosity. Also, our 200 million people, most of them young people, is a huge market in addition to being a place where innovation is happening. So I see a number of regional players, especially, who are now wanting to come in and look at the startup ecosystem and actually invest.
I think that's great.
That's exciting. That's really exciting.
Yeah.
I have a lot of, I place a lot of value in the early investors who actually invested in startups in Pakistan, the local investors. But I think we need very seasoned startup investors to come in and show us how it's really done. Because I think although the intent has been right by the local investors, what hasn't happened is that these kids have not got the money or the guidance at the right time.
So speaking of the kids that need the guidance, let's talk about the Nest.io. It's been around for 3 years now. You're actually sitting in your amazing office. And if people who go to Karachi haven't been to the Nest, I really recommend that you go. It's a really, really wonderful space. And I think what you guys have done, and I'm not just saying this because I'm interviewing you, you know, I say this about you anyway. What I think you guys have built more than anything is this amazing space that feels safe for kids to be able to come so that they spend their weekends there. So, I mean, they don't go home, they're actually working from your office. And I think that's what's great is the community that you've created. Can you tell us a little bit about, like, obviously you've had like all these great, we can talk about the metrics and the numbers, but in terms of, you know, some of the things that people may not know about the Nest of what you guys are up to, like, you know, some of the initiatives, can you talk a little bit about that too?
Sure. So when we started this space, we thought we were going to be helping young people to create businesses. That was the initial idea, right? But I certainly was not ready for actually the mission that we were going to set ourselves on. When these young people came into the Nest, what I discovered was that they needed people they could trust. They needed people that they could talk to, who would listen to them, who would not judge them, who would help them, you know, become confident about their own abilities, who would be there for them. And I didn't realize that we would be counselors in addition to being facilitators and mentors, right? It's a good feeling, and yet it's very strenuous because especially if you're not able to detach yourself from the problems that these kids face, they are such great kids, but they have challenges that you would not even imagine. But the fact that we can help them and that they can help themselves, that's where the community aspect comes in. Because me, you, or a group of people will only be available to them part of the time. But the community that we have created, they have become supporters and friends and brothers, sisters to each other.
Totally.
And that's what's great to see, because that will go on and on. They have realized that each one of them, if they have founder issues, they can talk to each other because they're all going through the same things. If they have personal problems, if, you know, whether it's, you know, problems with their girlfriends, boyfriends, whether it is, you know, we've had tragedies. We have people who have lost their parents. They have all stood by each other. And that is what has been great to see. That is the community that I'm so proud of building at the Nest.
Yeah, I think that's what's really important we have more and more incubators entering this space, right? And I think that's what's really important for people who are entering the startup support space to realize that we're actually not in the business of just this like one bottom line, we need to get value out of these companies, but actually realizing that we're building these communities and there's a responsibility that comes with what happens when you're building a community of people that need to be able to rely on each other. Because I think, you know, you had your own company, for me, very meta, running i2i. It's like you need a support group around you as you do things. And I think particularly in Karachi, because even though Karachi is the commercial capital, I mean, this is something that we've talked about, is that the city itself hasn't gotten a lot of government support, right? The way that Lahore or Punjab has, right? And so I think it's been kind of interesting what the Nest has been able to do within that vacuum of other players not being able to really be supportive.
But you know how it is when you don't have support, then you sort of decide that, you know, you got to do it yourself. And so you do. And we've been very lucky because our community here, our larger community of entrepreneurs, mentors, of advisors, they've been so great. The amount of time that they give to the Nest, to the young people here, is just amazing. And you asked about some of the programs. So in addition to the 4-month incubation program that we run, we've also started a program for women. It's called Women Scaling Heights. And the idea of that is we haven't seen enough women come in as entrepreneurs. And we realized that there must be a problem. Why are they not coming? They are women starting small businesses and keeping away from incubators and accelerators. We have only a few who come into us. And we realized that maybe it's the amount of time that they can put in. So maybe the 4-month incubation program doesn't work for them. Maybe what we need to do is flexi time in terms of the program as well. So we've started this and we found that they said, okay, we can come in on Saturdays because, you know, the kids are with their fathers or with other family, friends and whoever else, and we can put in time. And they're excited. They're excited to learn how to use technology to scale their businesses. They're excited about getting leadership training, about learning new tools and all that. So I think that's working. And then we started a program for kids, so 12 to 18-year-olds. And that's just been great. So it's
Yeah.
a summer program, 2 weeks. So we did two of those this year because there was just so much demand. And what we try and do is bring in kids when they're still young to give them a flavor of entrepreneurship, of technology, of even leadership training, of how to work together in teams. And it's just been great. They've made friends. They now meet outside. They've got their own little WhatsApp group. And even though we said 12 to 18, there was a 10-year-old who came in,
That's awesome.
who wrote to us, and we said, look, we can't take you. You're not 12 yet. And he said, I'm very disappointed to see that you are not accepting my application. I will have you know I'm nearly 11 and my brain is much older. So we have to accept it. I mean, how do you resist something like
Oh
that?
my
Right?
God, that's adorable.
And he was the most engaged, Kutsum. He was the most engaged participant of that boot camp.
That's awesome.
And then when we were interviewing him when he was leaving, and we said, so what do you have to say about the program? And he said, well, I would tell young kids out there that if you have a choice between going to Disneyland or coming to the Nest, you should come to the Nest. My God, what an endorsement.
Oh my goodness, that's wonderful. And I think, even within that, right, I think the biggest endorsements of any program, but particularly the Nest, has been your past startups, right? So who would you say, I'm going to put you on the spot, who's your favorite?
No, you're not going to get There'll be so many broken hearts.
I was just going to say, I was like, ooh, I'm going to stir the pot a little bit. No, we'll be real.
Each one of them is very different. Each one of them is very different and I think they're still on the way to being successful, but they have all proven that they are great entrepreneurs and that they are even better human beings. And that's what's important in my book.
Yeah, and
they may fail, they may fall flat
Yes.
on their faces, but they will get up and they will be there for each other and they will do something even more amazing. So I think that's enough to ask for.
That's awesome. And good diplomatic dodging of the question there. Good for you. Okay, last question. No, I'm just kidding because it's like Sophie's Choice. How can you choose? But so last question, since we're out of time. Any words of wisdom, like what words of advice would you give to someone who wants to get into the space, wants to start their own business, but would need that guidance? Like what would be your words of advice or your words of wisdom or something that you wish someone had told you when you were younger?
So I wish somebody had told me how hard it was going to be. Mm-hmm. We all tend to glamorize entrepreneurship or the startup ecosystem. It's not easy. Oh yes, it can make you feel really good. It can pump you up. It can bring you into contact with a group of people who are totally amazing. But don't think that it's not hard work. You have to put in a lot of hard work. So if you're going to be an entrepreneur, be ready for that. Be ready to learn something new every day. Be ready to put in, at least 15, 16 hours a day if necessary, especially if you're younger. I mean, I still put in 16 hours a day and sometimes more. So that's extremely important to know when you're getting into something like this. Mm-hmm. You cannot assume that it's going to be, most kids get into it saying, I want to be my own boss. And that's why I'm sort of starting a company. No, it's hard work. Yes, you'll be your own boss, but you'll also have to sweep the floor if you need to because you can't afford to, hire somebody to do it.
Exactly.
So be ready for that.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Jehan, for sharing and being so with your candor and as always, being supportive of everything in this space. Thanks.